Krishna Mahamahotsawa Gaura Purnima Ki!
So, Hallöchen, meine Gäste über die Bundes. Jetzt kommen wir zum zweiten Programmteil, nämlich den Vortrag von Besonderes Magdalena Swami. Genau, Mara spricht in Englisch und Übersetzung, wir werden eine russische Übersetzung haben hier und hinten werden wir eine kleine deutsche Übersetzung machen, ja? Für alle, die benötigen.
मेरा मोबाइल का चार्जर इसमें चार्जर नहीं है। प्रभु चार्जर चार्जर लेके आओ. Can you adjust it?
Jaya Kunja Bihari.
Can you adjust it? Can you adjust now?
Jaya Kunja Bihari. Gopi Janna Vallabha Jaya Giri Badadari. Jaya Giri Badadari. Gopi Janna Vallabha Jaya Giri Badadari. Jaya Giri Badadari. Yashodanandana Jaya Braja Janarandana Jaya Braja Janarandana Yashodanandana Jaya Braja Janarandana Jaya Braja Janarandana Yamuna Tiravana Sari Jaya Punjabi Hari Yamuna Tiravana Sari Jaya Punjabi Hari Raga Madhava Jaya Punjabi Hari Jaya Madhava Jaya Punjabi Hari So, how's our Russian translation still distributing devices, is it? Oh, almost finished. Okay, so I'll take about 30 seconds to offer respects to my spiritual teachers. Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Vacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. May I request one of these sitting pads for my feet? This is I don't have any socks, so I feel a little cold. Thank you. So today I have been given a very difficult task. And I have to tell you, every time we have these kind of special events, I always try to hide myself. But I guess once they gave you sannyas, then you have to always speak on these days, and I feel super humbled, and I feel super inadequate to say anything of substance in terms of the day we're celebrating today. But what can I say? You and I were all stuck with me today. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur once commented that in the history of religion, and so when he says history of religion, he's thinking worldwide, not just India or not just Vaishnavism, but just historically speaking, in the religious history, there has never been anyone who has displayed such spiritual emotion as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So today we're celebrating the birthday, the appearance day of this, what we sometimes call incarnation of God, but if we were to be precisely, technically correct, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is not even an incarnation of God, but God Himself. There's a slight difference between the two. And we could look at life and teachings of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu from many different perspectives. There's so much uniqueness about this manifestation of God in this world. The intimacy of the devotee with God within the teachings of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, something like we have never seen in the history of religion. Even if we were to look at Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as a social reformer, we could be quite impressed. So among all of these impressive things about Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, I chose one. And I will spend maybe 20 or so minutes trying to share this with you tonight. Is that planes up there, or that's just a ventilation system?
Ventilation.
Okay, no planes in there. That's what it sounds like to me.
Ventilation system.
It's okay. Bhagavad Gita is, how many of you, has any one of you read this book, just so I know who I'm dealing with tonight? Just a show of hands, just so I know what I need, how much I need to say. Okay, almost everyone read the book. How many of you have read the book partially? Partially, at least little something from the book. Not the whole thing, right? In the Bhagavad Gita, we have a very interesting statement. And we could say that that's already something quite unique. The statement is, can you guess what I'm thinking about? Of course you cannot. Omkareshwaraji, is that almost finished? Okay, yeah. You dropped that? Okay, we're good. Now we can continue. There's a very interesting statement in the Bhagavad Gita, and that is that by knowing you love. By knowing you love. And also by loving you know. Very interesting. Bhagavad Gita is sort of like a fundamental work, fundamental literature. But right here, Bhagavad Gita is setting a very interesting foundation. So by knowing you come to love. And then when you get to love, then you really know. And we could in some ways say that this statement characterizes the life and the teachings of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. You see, typically in academia, in religion, even in Vedic tradition, in order to know in order to really know, you need to be detached. Like detachment is the first, it is the preliminary qualification for knowledge. In other words, people who are attached to things have no ability to be objective. And therefore, first one should practice detachment in order to be able to be dispassionate, in order to know. However, here we have it other way around. Here says, in order to know, you need to be attached. And you need to have a strong attachment. And stronger the attachment, better the knowledge. And I have here a few quotes for you from our literature, like from the Bhagavad Gita. Aham sarvasya. Does anyone of you know this verse? Aham sarvasya. You know. It's one of the stated to be 4 essential verses from the Bhagavad Gita. It's found in the relatively in the beginning of the 10th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. Aham sarvasya prabhavo matah sarvam pravartate iti matva bhajante mam. One who knows come to adore. So Krishna is saying, one who comes to, first he describes himself, like, I'm this amazing person from whom everything comes. Not your everyday Joe Schmo. I don't know how you're going to translate Joe Schmo, or how would you say that in German? Not your ordinary Ivan. Is that a common Russian name? Okay. Or not your ordinary Hans. Is that a typical German name? Hans. I don't know.
Hans, yes. I have
That
colleagues.
comes to my mind, yeah.
Yes.
Not your ordinary person. Krishna says, everything comes from me. And he says, when someone gets to know this, the person cannot but adore. I mean, imagine if out of my ear now universe came out. You'd be all, wow! How did you do that? You may even get to feel some love towards me. So Krishna is saying, if you come to know me, you will adore me. Because Krishna is impressive. And so in this way, Krishna is saying is that when you know, you get to love. But also, he says, if you love, you get to know. And just a couple of verses later, Krishna is saying, Tesham eva nukampartam aham agyana jam tamaha nashayam yatma bhavasto jnana dipena basvata. And then Krishna says, okay, now if you have come to actually love me, I shine a lamp of knowledge within your heart. Within your heart.
Yes.
Very interesting statement. Here comes a humongous garland. Let's do that. Love is in the air. Oh, they believe it or not. Sometimes in Kali Yuga, even flowers have a scent. Sometimes they don't.
They are coming from Gaura Nitai.
Very interesting statement. So, I hope you follow. First, Krishna says, if you know me, you love me. But then if you love me, then I, within your heart, shine a divine lamp of knowledge which dissipates the darkness of ignorance. And so this is how a person come to know. Like you knew initially, but not enough. Now you get to really know. There are other interesting statements in the Srimad Bhagavatam. I'll just quote 2 more verses, not to put you to sleep. Vasudeve Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojitaha Janayatyashu Vairagyam Jnanam Jnanam Cha Yad Ahaitukam. Krishna says that if you come to love me, adore me, serve me, worship me, then few things automatically happen in you. One is detachment, which is the preliminary qualification for knowledge, for knowing the truth. But then he says, jnanam, knowledge itself, automatically, ahaitukam, like automatically. Hetu means cause, ahetu means no cause, meaning it's automatic. This is a very interesting. Typically, people think that in order to know, you need to study a lot. But in the teachings of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, what you study will get you only at the start of the race. But to continue the race, you need to come to love. And so this, I'll skip the second quote. Actually, I won't. I'll say it. Many times, Srila Prabhupada said that knowledge is a concomitant factor. You know what means concomitant? Something that comes with, follows, comes with. Concomitant. Yeah. That knowledge is a concomitant factor to what? To devotional service. In other words, if one serves in devotion, then knowledge is that which follows. It's a product of devotional service. It's a product of devotional life. Srila Prabhupada gave the example of jar of honey. And he heard this example from his own guru, a jar of honey.
Yes.
Like you can know some things about honey just by looking at it. You know, the color of it, maybe the texture of it. But if you really want to know what the hell the honey is, you need to taste it. And so once you have tasted it, then you get knowledge which you otherwise could not have about honey. And if you continue to taste it, there'll be more knowledge coming about honey. So in this way, Srila Prabhupada told us what we had just heard, that knowledge yields love, but then love yields knowledge. And so when we come to this very interesting manifestation of God, as the claim is within the Gaudiya Vaishnava tradition, we have a very, very interesting incarnation of God. Actually, God Himself. I shouldn't say incarnation. It is. It sounds like a horrible contradiction. But the statement is that God does not know Himself. It's like, what the? You people have gone insane. But in some ways, the claim is that God does not know Himself. And in order to get to know Himself, He becomes the devotee of His own self. Because devotees are those individuals that love God. Irrespective of what tradition we're speaking about, this is abstraction. So devotees love God. And for those of you who may know very specifically, the tradition says, actually maybe I should say, but in Gaudiya Vaishnava tradition, God manifests in varieties of ways. And one way in which God manifests is as a divine couple, as a divine male and a divine female. And divine female is the first devotee of God. And that God himself is, and her name is Srimati Radha. And Srimati Radha, or sometimes affectionately known as Radhika, which means small Radha. So diminutive, like it gives the name some sweetness. As Radhika is the first devotee of God, Krishna himself is thinking, like, what does she see in me?
Yes.
What is it? What in the world is she experiencing? And then in order to know that, Krishna appears as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And so in this way we have this like, very unusual statement, which if taken out of context may sound horrible, that God does not know himself. And in order to get to know himself, he becomes a devotee of himself. He's intrigued as to what are my devotees experiencing when they actually love or serve me. There is a very, almost like a psychedelic story in the Srimad Bhagavatam, in the 12th canto, the story of Markandeya Rishi. Did any one of you read this story perhaps? Story of one, just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Not too many, 7. Not too many. Bring the book out. How much does it cost? Let's sell some. Very interesting story where there's this rishi who wanted to know what illusion is like. I wish I could say that I know what illusion is like very well. I'm soaking in it. But he wanted to know what illusion is like. And then Krishna displayed to him the whole creation quickly, which to him seemed like billions of years. And then he saw the transient nature of things. And in that illusion, there was a moment of shyness. And then in that moment, he saw baby Krishna.
Yes.
Do you remember this? What was baby Krishna doing?
He's putting his toy.
Baby Krishna was sucking on his own toe.
Yes.
Did you ever see this painting?
Yes,
maybe?
yes.
There's a painting of baby Krishna in a leaf.
Yes.
And he's like babies sometimes do.
Yes.
When you're adult, you can't do that. Try if you can. See if you can.
Record.
Record this. We won't do it now.
In Jagannath Puri. In Jagannath Puri.
Baby Krishna sucking on his own toe. Oh, this is of a profound theological importance. There's some similarity between this and the appearance of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Why was baby Krishna sucking his own toe? Because he wanted to see what is that nectar that devotees experience when they serve the lotus feet of Krishna. And so this is the very reason why Krishna comes as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. to have the experience of devotion to God. Krishna is typically the object of our devotion. But here we have an interesting incarnation where Krishna becomes the one who's offering devotion to Krishna. And Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, we could say, lived intensely. If I was a temple president for a good number of years, and sometimes, as you know, when you live with a group of people, life can become difficult. Sometimes, not always. And when these kind of difficulties would arise, we would all come together and read Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, which is one of the biographies of the life of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Why? There's no literature as sweet as Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita. Why? Because there's no dealings as sweet as between Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and devotees that surround him. I mean, you read this and it melts your heart. Like you have a glimpse into the spiritual world. What is it like to really associate with devotees of God? Where Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself plays the role of a devotee. And it is super sweet. So sweet that we would forget about our quarrels with each other. We would think, oh, we should also be like that. And so, for the sake of time, I don't want to, I mean, it's impossible to say a whole lot about the life of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. But as a devotee of God, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu displayed what we may call the pinnacle of devotion to Krishna. And the pinnacle of devotion to Krishna is the meeting of devotees with Krishna. And that ceiling being broken by separation. And we witness this, these kind of events in the Srimad Bhagavatam, in the 10th canto, where the life of Krishna is described. Krishna, after a long time, finally meeting with Srimati Radha and other gopis of Vrindavan, devotees. And this is the pinnacle of religious experience. Most intimate relationship with God, super close. And then Krishna left them. At that point, their desire for Krishna increased by billionfold. Whatever seemed to have been pinnacle of religion now went a million miles higher. And Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, especially towards the end of his life, lived these experiences. Those of you who have had a chance to go to Jagannath Puri might have seen many of these places where Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu spent his time. And the interesting thing is that Mahaprabhu was with us not too long ago, like mere 540 years. In the grand scheme of things, relatively short.
Very short, yes.
Yeah. And it is described how throughout the day Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would be busy with devotees hearing and chanting about Krishna, performing some service for Krishna and so on. But when at night, when everyone would go to rest, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu couldn't rest. because his mind would be soaked in the feelings of separation from Krishna. And he'd be crying all night, "Oh Krishna, where are you? How can I live without you?" And the example is given like when Krishna departed from Vrindavan. Gopis nearly died. The only reason why they didn't die was a possibility of perhaps meeting Krishna again. And so different gopis describe these feelings sometimes as poison. I remember we had one relatively new bhakta at our temple in San Diego, California. And when he was reading of these experiences of pain, of separation from Krishna, he didn't like it. he thought, this is not good. But he couldn't understand the absolute nature of God. That there is no difference between God or God's name. There's no difference between being so-called present before God or thinking of God. And so in this intensified meditation of the gopis on Krishna, even though exhibited the symptoms of pain, they were in divine ecstasy of actually being with Krishna while experiencing separation. And so how did this reflect, these feelings, how did they reflect on Chaitanya Mahaprabhu? I mean, sometimes I'm even afraid to say, not to scare anyone. But at night, when everyone would fall asleep, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would be alert, and he'd be in this madness of meditation on Krishna. And sometimes he would vanish and no one could find him. Sometimes they would find him in the water, in the ocean. Sometimes they would find him behind the temple and laying in the street. And the devotees were worried. So they found this one little room for him. Did any one of you go to Gambira in Jagannath Puri? You have two. Who else? Oh, not too many. Only four, 5. Yes, in Jagannath Puri, Gambira, 6. Did you see how small that room is? So that's where devotees would put Mahaprabhu at night. And then some devotees would stay with him to recite the verses from Vedic literature describing Krishna. And especially literature describing Leela or pastimes of Krishna when Krishna appears in this world. And especially the time of his meeting with his devotees. Because they would mitigate the feelings of separation in Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. But if devotees fell asleep or something, Mahaprabhu wouldn't. And there's even descriptions like he would chant Krishna's name and be completely oblivious to the world around him. That he'd be walking along a wall and rubbing his face against the walls, like hurting his face. Very, very intense. And in the Vaishnava literature, this is stated to be the pinnacle of the pinnacle of experience of love of God. Not to be imitated. This is just something that we are in awe of, that we worship. And the Sankirtana movement, the movement of, what is Sankirtana?
Congregational chanting
Congregation means chanting of God's names, but together.
together.
Together. This is therefore described as an epistemic process. Do you know what epistemic process means? Epistemology refers to the theory of knowledge, like a process by which you come to know something. And so this is a group epistemic process, or a group process of self-realization, where we do what? We actually, first, we hopefully get to know something about Krishna consciousness. And then we engage in chanting of God's names. And then, hopefully, we engage in chanting of God's names together. And then we together have the experience of how love produces knowledge. And so in this way, this chanting of God's names together has been introduced by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as the process of self-realization. In Christian tradition, for example, Tolstoy, we have a few Russians here, Tolstoy said that self-realization is possible only within a group. And I was thinking, yes, that's what we say. Sankirtana, together. Why would self-realization be possible only within a group? Because, man, if you think you're alone, you're so wrong. And if you cannot live with other people, something is really wrong with you. Even if you're not capable of being humble enough to put up with people who are wrong, something is wrong with you. And so the Sankirtana movement is a movement that requires of you to be Trinada Pisuni. Like a verse I always recommend to others. Trinada Pisuni Chenatarorivasahishuna Amanina Manadena Kirtaniya. So in order to perform Sankirtana, it says one should be tolerant like a tree. And one should be humble like a blade of grass. And one should always offer respect to others. And one should never care to receive respect from others. And Mahaprabhu says, in this state of mind, you can practice Sankirtana. And then from this perspective, what Tolstoy said, that self-realization is impossible individually, I have to agree.
Yes, that makes sense.
Because if it is true that God exists, that the spiritual world exists, that the soul associated with each other centered around God, then I guess we need to learn to live with each other, I guess. And learn to live with each other devotionally. Learn to live with each other devotionally. Yeah. In the process of Sankirtana, glorifying God by reciting God's name together. I'll just take a few more minutes to tell you about an anomaly. Because I felt that I should really do this. That there's a great need to do this. Because when you say that knowledge is a product of love, then you may... Do you see a problem in this? Does anyone see perhaps a problem in it? What could go wrong if we say that knowledge is a product of love? What could go wrong with it? And it did go wrong many, many times, especially in the Gaudiya history.
Maybe you can speculate that.
Yeah, you can speculate, for sure. You can speculate. You can be a complete sentimentalist. Do you know how many sentimentalists we had throughout the history of Gaudiya Vaishnavism? Because people claim that love is an abstract thing. But in Gaudiya Vaishnavism, love is structured. Believe it or not, love is structured, and therefore it can be defined. And therefore, we can tell what love is and what love is not. Srila Rupa Goswami wrote a giant book
Yes.
just to tell us what love really is. Especially nowadays, when you say love, all kinds of nonsense goes under that name. A giant book. Big book.
Nectar of devotion.
Oh, you got it. In Gaudiya history, we call these people Sahajiyas. Sahaja. Sahaja means born, Saha means with, and this is a term, a Sanskrit term that indicates that which is natural. Like something that's born with something is said to be natural to it. It's like second part of you, part of your nature. Shri Shri Gaura Nitai ki. And so what Sahajiyas have a tendency to do is like say, man, just be natural. Just relax. You know, do whatever you feel like. Do you know how horrible that is? Do you know what typically people feel? A lot of lust, a lot of anger, a lot of hate. No, those are the things that need to be under control. Those are the things that civilized people control, let alone spiritual practitioners. But they say, whatever you feel like, let it be. But Srila Rupa Goswami, one of our grand teachers, said, no, love is actually structured. There is structure to love. And so even you can monitor your progress, check your pulse, your bhakti pulse, your devotional pulse to see how healthy it is. I have two examples in mind. One example is in the early days of the Hare Krishna movement in America. Prabhupada was still with us. Devotees established a temple in Los Angeles. And then an Indian fellow came to the temple. And devotees were very impressed by him because he was full of emotion. And he'd be crying before the deities of Radha and Krishna, and crying and fainting and falling onto the ground and shaking in ecstasy. And then more is done that, more devotees were wondering, what the hell is going on here?
We never saw before.
Never saw before. Then devotees contacted Srila Prabhupada as to what shall we do? And Prabhupada said, Prabhupada quoting a Shastra says that those are the symptoms of the highest level of love of God. And when a person is experiencing that level of love of God, the person cannot experience anything else. Therefore, go there and kick it. He was joking. You know, kick with the foot. Because if he's truly experiencing love of God of that level, he will not feel it. And if he feels it, then he's an imposter and toss him out. He was joking, of course. The Buddhists didn't do that. So that was the first major imposter in Krishna. But throughout many years, we had many. We had another guy from India who claimed to be nonetheless but the incarnation of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He said that when Mahaprabhu was here, he came as sannyasi. And as a sannyasi, he didn't come close to women. Monks don't intimately mingle with women. And so now he came again to give mercy, especially to women. I guess you know where this is going. I was a temple president, and this guy, actually secretary, contacted some of our devotees of Indian origin. And if you know anything about Indians, they're very religious people. And they value every form of religion, especially their own, of course. And sometimes people exploit this religious fervor. And so his secretary offered to have this guy, I'm not going to say his name, to come to our San Diego and give a darshana, which means present himself before everybody, and merely by his presence everyone will be blessed. And he may embrace a few women. And then he asked that he be paid traveling expenses. And so this group of devotees agreed. And then after a while, he asked to be flown there, to fly there, not drive, but fly. So, okay, devotees agreed. Then after a while he said, no, get me there by private jet. So, again they agreed. And then he said, and give me a certain amount of money, and I can't remember how much was it, but it was in the dozens of thousands of dollars. And this was, I shouldn't say because people may guess who I'm talking about, but more than 10 years ago. Like way more than 10 years ago. So that amount of money was a lot of money. And so devotees now felt, but they agreed. And then he asked to sleep with the wife of the host. And that's where devotees said, okay, this guy's fake. But how come you didn't realize that before? Like, with all of the books we have, you couldn't tell it's such a giant imposter.
Yes.
So love is structured. There is science to it. And there's also a network of checks and balances. Typically we say Guru, Sadhu, Shastra. Guru the teacher, Sadhu the holy person, and most prominently Shastra, or the scripture. And for God's sake, I mean, we really don't lack scriptures. Like, the amount of scriptures our tradition has, it's hardly to be found anywhere else. And sadhana. And sadhana is the process by which we practice devotion. And so this is super briefly the life and the teachings of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. If we were to conclude all of this, let's go back to the Bhagavad Gita, which says, if you know, you love. But if you want to go further, you need to love to know further. And Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself came to live this and taste this. Om Tat Sat. Any questions or comments perhaps? How are we doing time-wise? I'm Karishwaraji. How are we doing time-wise?
15 minutes we can have. We can have some questions here. 15 minutes maybe.
Okay. We have in this order 1, 2, 3, 4. If you could remember your numbers. 1, 2, 3,
I have also
4.
one question. I want to also make one question for me.
Then you are 0 or 5? Okay, 5.
Here. Prabhuji.
Is 5.
Still. Hare Krishna. It's better you can ask to this because everybody can listen. Hare Krishna.
I just work for these people.
Who more?
Hare Krishna Maharaj, thank you so much for this wonderful lecture. My question is a practical one because I like practical things. Maybe you have any tips for us or your view what we can ask for on such auspicious days, what we can pray for, what we can pray in front of the altar.
Okay, that's a very good question. The first thing that comes to mind is the verse I quoted from Shikshashtaka. You see, Srila Prabhupada described our position something like that of a person in a well. You know, well?
Yes.
With water in it? Yeah. And that I have fallen into that well. And someone is lowering the rope to get me out. And that person is willing to pull. So the person is lowering the rope and it's ready to pull. But I also have to do something. I have to hold on to the rope. And so this analogy is given a few times in an attempt to illustrate our situation. So holding to the rope is part of things that we need to do. Like something has to come from us. We have to be, and that's the first thing. If a person is willing, that's an amazing beginning. And then we're told what to will. And for example, one thing to will would be to learn to be humble, like devoid of pride. And what's interesting, how God's name becomes tasteful when the person is such a condition. Tolerant and humble. We could pray for ability to aspire for that. Our problem is that we perhaps don't have tendency to aspire for it. So that might be a good thing to pray for. For example, I personally have had one very intense experience. For the sake of time, I'll just tell you that somehow or other life was so nasty to me, like several days in a row, and I was stripped of everything. Eventually my pride also. And I felt like everything's over for me. And for some reason, at that point, I remembered God. Not before. And it took my prayer beats and I started to chant. I never chanted, I never had such a sweet experience with the holy name as in that state of being devoid of all the pride. Of course, I wasn't completely prideless, I was just separated from the sources of my pride. But as soon as I regained connection to the sources of my pride, I was back to my good old self. But I had a glimpse when the sources of my pride were taken away, like in that state of utter humility, God consciousness had so much sense and it was so tasteful, and my life was, for a brief period, filled with love. So that might be a good thing to pray for. Does that satisfy your question today? Okay, thank you.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, actually my question is directly connected with this question from Lila Sundari Mataji.
Okay, you're
So
vice president, so you can interject.
No, I can ask later, but this is directly
No.
session. So Maharaj, you also mentioned in your class the mode of Trinadapi Sunichena, and you suggested also to Mataji that humility, we should beg for humility to Bhagavan. And now my question is, when Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was in Gambhira the last 12 years of his life, and he was in the mode of Radharani, and he composed these 8 set of verses, Sri Siksastam, and his mood was very, very humble and in Vipralabha bhav, and he composed all these 8 verses, and this 3rd verse is Trinadapi Sunichena Tarorapi Sehsuna Amanina Amanadina Kirtanya Sadahari. So one should be humbler than the straw of the grass and more tolerant than the tree, and not expecting, not honoring everyone, but not expecting honor for oneself. Maharaj, actually for me, if I look into this is impossible, next to impossible, because we are in the body of sadhaka. We are not like bhava bhakti or prema bhakti, and when we are in the body of sadhaka, and we assume ourselves that we are humble than the blade of the grass, it looks next to impossible, because blade of the grass, when we crush it, it doesn't say anything to us. It is crushed and we go and then it's stand up. But if somebody crushes us, then we don't remain silent. So you understand me, like it's very, very difficult to practice this Trinad Api Sunichena Tarur Api Sehsuna. So Maharaj, is it possible to achieve this state of mind even in the body of sadhaka, or this is only in the stage of bhava bhakti, that when we are coming to that spontaneous loving devotional service, then we are not on the bodily platform, and then we can do this naturally, in natural way, rather than faking ourselves as a humble, but we are not humble actually. So how we?
The question is, it's a good question, but it is a pointless question in the sense that whether one is a sadhaka or not, one should aspire for this.
Yes.
Now, to what extent one will develop that, that's a different story. And when will one develop that, that doesn't really matter. But what's important is that one is striving for it.
Yes.
To be, and the process of Krishna consciousness is such that we make one step, and then we deserve a whole lot of mercy. Or even perhaps maybe first mercy comes, and then we make few steps. It doesn't matter. But after we have received some mercy, we can again make few steps. And because we made them, we get another. Because you see, the experience of love, the experience of bhakti, in whichever form, is an act of mercy. It's stronger than us. When you experience that, you surrender. It takes over you to whatever extent. And we have experiences like this. Sometimes in kirtan, sometimes when we chant our japa, sometimes when we serve, sometimes when we're being humiliated. It depends. But sometimes when we're being praised also. And now technically, what shall we call the stage when we have developed that kind of humility and tolerance? I don't think that's awfully too relevant.
Yes, Maharaj, thank you so much. I think it's really clarifying my doubt. But one thing about like the author of this verse, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who wrote this verse. So when he was doing Sankirtan in Mayapur in Navdeep Dham in the house of Srivas Thakur, and Chand Kaji has broken the mridangas and he did not allow the devotees to perform Sankirtana. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, I will kill him. So the same person who is saying, one should be Pinadapi Sunichena, Tanurapi Sesuna.
He wasn't humble at the time.
Yeah. So how to explain the author of the verse himself is, no, I'm not, I know he's right, he's Bhagwan, he's Supreme Lord, Supreme Personality of Godhead, and whatever he do, it is Dharma. Dharma to Sakshat Bhagavad Praneta. So Bhagwan, whatever Bhagwan do is a Dharma. So he was doing Dharma. But how to understand this actually from our perspective?
Yeah, waiting for it to catch up. You may know that I said that love is structured. Bhakti, devotional service, is structured. And in the book Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, it is stated that this love, this bhakti, has 6 dominant qualities. And one of them is Shubhada. Shu means good, Da, that which gives. And practically it means that it's absolutely good. In other words, person who has this kind of bhakti is the person who is so tolerant, But if that person decides to, whatever action, course of action that person does, it's ultimately good. Just like a parent, this is now controversial in the modern world, but my mother used to beat me. Not like a whole lot, but I used to get on my backside. But a parent sometimes may punish a child out of love, and the result is good. So this is not a question of being tolerant or intolerant. Like if a person responded to it because the person is intolerant, then what would come out of that act would not be good. Things that do come out of love are of a different sort.
Fully agree, Maharaj. So we should not show like fake humility, but we should be very realistic. We should be very, like, if we have to teach someone, we can also
Kill someone?
no, teach.
Oh, teach.
Even the devotees in Mayapur, when there were dacoits, they were stealing the deities of Sri Radha Madhav, and they were killing the devotees. Then Prabhupada asked them, our devotees, to keep the guns.
Yeah, of course.
So that's the way, like.
Yeah, but you see, the value of an act, if you can think of this, value of an act, moral value of an act, it's almost never found in the act itself. But it's found in the reasons for which the act is done and the attitude with which the act is done. So, physical force could be a horrible thing or a wonderful thing. Depends. For the reason it was done and the attitude with which it was done. It has nothing to do whether we're humble or not. Even if we're not, we should try to at least be civilized and try to think, what's my motive now? I was a Bhakta program director for a good number of years. And every time if I needed to correct someone, if I wasn't in the right state of mind, I would just walk away. Because I knew if I offer any kind of correction in this state of mind, it will not have good results. Is that okay? Should we?
Yes. Thank you so much. Thank you. Who is the next one?
Who was number 2? Okay.
Number 2.
Thank you, Maharaj, for the wonderful answers. So, you talked about one of the important concepts called separation that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu faced. So, how come we as a human, a sadhaka, can experience and practice those intensive separation that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had?
No. No. Exclamation mark. No. Never. No, we don't. We just admire that. But we have you see, in our lives we definitely have a bit of an experience of it. They say if you're putting positive value on something, negative value follows. In other words, like if you like your tablet, you'd be sad if you lose it.
Yes.
So similarly, to the extent you like Krishna consciousness, to that extent, you'd be also afraid of losing it. Or a person in Krishna consciousness that you admire, you would feel sad, maybe even fear of losing contact with that person. And as a matter of fact, this is how one makes progress in Krishna consciousness. Like a neophyte devotee is a devotee who comes to understand that perhaps there is God and admires God, but does not admire devotees of God. And actually, the verse even says, does not admire even those who are not devotees of God, because you're supposed to admire everyone. Actually, the word is worship, even worship, not just admire, but worship. Pujitaya Shradaye Hate Natad Bhakteshu Chanyeshu Sabhakta Prakrita Smritaha. Such a devotee is a materialistic devotee. But how does that materialistic devotee get out of that position and becomes a better devotee? By coming to value Krishna consciousness, and then the person realizes that there are elements that make my Krishna consciousness possible, and that's definitely devotees. And then one starts to admire and value the association of devotees. And this is how one makes progress from level 1 to level 2. And at this point, you also experience negative value, in a sense that you feel sad if you have to lose company of someone. Like just recently we lost 3 Prabhupada disciples. I knew all 3 of them, and I lived with one of them. I mean, I don't want to sound like a sentimental, but I cried the whole freaking morning. I tried to record a video for public, and I couldn't, because too close. That person did so much for me in my spiritual life. The fact that it did that enriched my life. Even the sadness I'm feeling has enriched my life. And even that, even his departure, gets me closer to God. That's the negative value. But the Vipralamba, these amazing experiences of separation in Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, not to be imitated. Don't even think about it.
So we
don't practice that.
So
No.
we as a sadhaka will never get to experience that intensive love, or
No. Definitely not.
Later, just to others. Who more? Who is next? Please come ahead.
In the Shastra, if you read Srila Rupa Goswami's Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, those experiences are experienced only by super rare individuals.
then what we should experience as a sadhaka, then what we should ultimately experience then?
What? A lot of other things. And you will experience some separation, as I said. But you have to put some positive value. You have to serve the deity. You have to serve the devotees. You have to serve those who are not devotees. Serve people out. And putting that positive value, the negative value of separation will naturally manifest. No need to even bother yourself with it. That's also stated that we just practice Krishna consciousness. And these feelings, they come naturally. And you just measure that against the Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra to make sure you're not becoming a mere sentimentalist. Yes.
Prabhu, I have one question regarding the thing that you said, Sri Rupa Goswami said that love is very structured. I wanted to give a similar analogy of
Maybe not very structured, but definitely structured.
okay. The most close analogy I can think of is the analogy of knowledge, because I have some examples. So, in case of knowledge, when we have this sort of structured education system, like primary school, high school, college, university, like that, when I see myself in that journey, I feel that I have gained more from unstructured way of knowledge rather than the structured way, because there are syllabus or those sort of things which always restrict myself from gaining a certain knowledge which I'm very interested to gain. And when I see my true interest, that I'm very interested in something that was not in my syllabus, which was unstructured, and I feel more happy when I do that. But I was thinking that love is extremely personal. I mean, the intimate relationship between the bhakta and God is sort of just one-to-one.
The world can be structured then. Good question.
That's my question, Prabhu.
Yeah, that's a very good question. Thank you. Appreciate it. The fact that it's structured does not necessarily does not negate its uniqueness, like your personal subjectiveness, because you see, there's in our tradition, there's some like really far out statements. Like one of these crazy statements is that God appears in unlimited forms because there are unlimited devotees of unlimitedly different devotion. But still structure is there. Some structure. Like if you study Srimad Bhagavatam, every time there's some sort of destruction described, destruction always takes place by the process of removing the qualities from the substance. Because once you remove the qualities from the substance, you don't have the substance. Like water, you remove liquidity from it and it's vapor, ice, whatever, but it's not water anymore, like that. So this is called dharma, this set of qualities that make existence of something possible. Dhri means holds its existence, that is dharma, essential nature of something. So also love, if it exists, it has to have qualities. If it has qualities, it means there is structure. But the structure does not mean that it's uniform, that it's equal to everyone. But there is structure. Enough of structure to where you can follow along to make sure you're not becoming a sentimentalist. Does that satisfy your question for today?
Yes, thank you.
We have just one last one now. Will the last one? In the queue. Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Thank you for this beautiful lecture. And providing us with this very beautiful metaphor to know love and to love know. Maharaj, you stated that we know in Dwapar Yoga Krishna Lila, after Krishna left Vrindavan, from there Radharani experienced that separation, love in separation, and somehow Krishna wanted to feel that experience as well. So in Kali Yuga, as you said, to experience that love in separation, he came as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and we know Radharani as internal potency of Krishna himself. Both came in the same body as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And after taking sannyas, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also went to Jagannath Puri, where Lord Krishna is residing as a Lord Jagannath himself. So with my very negligible knowledge, I can find where is the separation.
Oh, where is the separation? There's no separation. If you read, for example, Bhagavad Gita is a fundamental work. And Bhagavad Gita speaks almost constantly of unity, yoga, unity, and paints a cosmic picture of unity. Like there is no disunity. This is all. How do we translate the term rasa? I'm tempted to say something, but if I say it would take me forever to explain without people thinking I went crazy. But there is, you may know, okay, let's speak cryptically. You know Veda, Abeda, Tattva?
Yes.
Yeah. So, as that holds true between Bhagavan and Jiva, it's think of Bhagavan as one, and Jiva, and all of the Shaktis. There is no separation. But at the same time, there is Veda or separation, so that Bhakti is possible. So in that Bhakti, there is a sense of separation. But even in that separation, gopis are never as close to Krishna as when they're in separation. We're getting super arasika now. Is that okay if we leave it at that for...
Yes,
yeah. Before we get way too esoteric?
Yes. Thank you.
I think there was one more devotee, and because we're out of time, was
No, we
there
are
one
done.
more?
We are done. I think we are 5 total now.
It's me only.
Yes.
Oh, you were the last one. Okay, good. I was going to say if there's one more, then we can...
Thank you so much, Maharaj. Thank you so much for this very extended class, very deep, but also practical. So you combined both the aspects, and you gave the internal reason for appearance of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and so many enlightening instructions and life-saving instructions to create a mood for a devotee for celebrating God Purnima. So thank you so much, Maharaj. We are very blessed with your association and presence. And please chant, dear devotees, for 3 times Mahamantra for Maharaj. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. I just remembering a wonderful thing. When Maharaj is here for last couple of days in Gauradesh, on the last Ekasi, it was just 3-4 days before last Ekasi, Maharaj got the 10th year of his renunciation of the sannyasa. So Maharaj had 10th year of sannyasa in Gauradesh on Ekadasi, this Ekasi. So Hari Bol! Thank you, Maharaj. We are lucky that your 10th year was here in Gauradesh.
than me.
Because we are very excited. We have sannyasis like you. Maharaj has served 14 years as a temple president of Santiago in California. Maharaj has done wonderful, innovative teaching programs like Krishna Lounge, Pilgrimage Bus, and lot of preaching centers and traveling all around the world. Thank you, Maharaj. Please, visit us again and bless us. Thank you. Hare Krishna. Now we begin with the Gaura Arati. Please.
Gagan Prabhu. Jaya Gaura Nitai, Jaya Gaura Nitai, Jaya Gaura Nitai, Jaya Gaura Nitai.